Hello Internet, welcome to Play Theory.
Too soon.
Welcome to Playthrough, this channel's latest show. Hi, I'm Gear. Let me start by introducing myself since this is my first video on this channel. I'm Playthrough's current host. I play Five Nights at Freddy's Max modes on my own YouTube channel and am a professional theater kid. On this show, we will answer important questions about stage-related topics. This could include Hamilton, Hadestown, Batman the Musical, Dear Evan Hansen, more on that later, or even something that isn't on the stage but contains a lot of Broadway actors like Hazbin Hotel. Now that you know me and what I do, let's get right into the meat of it. Have you ever encountered a manipulative person before? Or are you a manipulative person? I hope not. Who comes to mind when you think of a manipulative character in your media? Light Yagami? Hannibal Lecter? Dream? One that you don't see brought up nearly enough is Walter White from Breaking Bad. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain the show because it's almost 12 years old, but for those that haven't seen it, it follows the story of Walter White, a family man with a pregnant wife and a disabled child. One day, he gets diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer and uses this as an excuse to make and sell meth so he has money to give his family when he eventually passes away. As the plot progresses, he becomes more manipulative, eventually getting called out for his actions and dying, hated by those he was trying to protect. Now, this may seem like a stark comparison, yes, but Evan Hansen from the Broadway musical Dear Evan Hansen shares a lot of the same traits as the internet's favorite meth producer. Evan's story is less recognizable, but as a whole, much more controversial. Evan Hansen is a teenager with severe anxiety who accidentally, due to the anxiety, stumbles into a situation where he is assumed to be the best friend of a kid who committed suicide at his school. Yes, that story was used for a real-life Broadway musical. Yes, it has a big-budget movie musical adaptation. And no, we do not talk about said movie adaptation. Throughout the story, Evan starts with good intentions, trying to give the kid's family closure. However, he becomes manipulative when he tries to use his new status for personal gain, until he's called out for his actions, eventually leaving town in shame. Sound familiar? But overall, who's a more effective manipulator? To start with this monumental task, we must first define what it means to be a manipulator. Merriam-Webster defines manipulation as the ability to control or play upon by artful, unfair, or insidious means, especially to one's own advantage. That means our candidates for the most effective manipulator must be skillful at their craft, capable of getting what they want through unjust means, and have some selfish intent behind them. We don't want to consider a selfless candidate because that beats the point of manipulation. With that, let's make a comparison. Unlike Walter White, Evan Hansen doesn't know he's manipulating, but that doesn't automatically disqualify him. For the first box, immediately he does not pass the test. Evan ends up in this situation purely by accident and doesn't do anything to show meticulousness. Evan is incredibly sloppy in his attempt to keep everything secret. For example, when Alana, Evan's classmate and founding member of the Connor Project, confronts Evan, believing that he might be lying about being Connor's friend, Evan sends a picture of the suicide note, in heavy quotations, of course. This leads to the exposing of Evan's lie, which he should have foreseen but didn't. The second box also cleared relatively easily. Who would have guessed that framing yourself as the best friend of a kid who committed suicide, keeping it secret, and then dating his sister is morally wrong? Yeah, he also did that. The third box, once again, is a difficult one to determine. For the most part, Evan Hansen is lying to Connor's family to give them closure. He wants to give them closure through fabricated stories of what he and Connor did together, a selfless act. Unfortunately for Evan, this selflessness can be ignored when he uses his status as Connor's friend to gain new friends and date Connor's sister Zoe. She's still grieving the loss of her brother, and Evan unknowingly takes full advantage of this. Evan checks the third box. Walter White's manipulative tendencies only appear later in the series for the most part. The best example of his manipulation is how he gets Jesse to be against Gus. For those uninformed, Gus is the man that Walter and his partner cook meth for, but Walter makes a variety of stupid decisions and gets on Gus's bad side. With this, Gus decides to get rid of Walter while also keeping the meth formula that Walter made. To do this, he needs to convince Jesse, who already knows the formula, to betray Walter, which, for a while, works. Walter then plays into Jesse's compassion for his girlfriend Andrea and her son Brock to get Jesse back on his side. Walter poisons Brock with a flower called Lily of the Valley, because he knows it can get overlooked in most cases, and he could convince Jesse that Gus poisoned Brock. Now, Lily of the Valley is a common flower that can cause poisoning if ingested, so not only is it something Walter could access relatively quickly, but it could also get written off as Brock simply eating a flower from the garden. The elaborate nature of this plan shows that Walter is highly meticulous regarding his manipulation, so he's already checked off one of our 3 boxes for now. It might seem cheap to say, but for the second box, I don't think poisoning a child that your partner loves to win them over is a very fair idea. Walter easily checks this second box. Now, the final box is tricky to define. While Walter's actions are wrong, we can't say he did it for selfish reasons. He was thinking that Gus was going to kill his family, including his newborn daughter. Therefore, Walter doesn't precisely fit the definition of manipulation as close as previously thought. Isn't this convenient? Now, to answer the question of who the greater manipulator is, we must decide which quality is more important: selfishness or meticulousness. Walter can be brilliant and capable of manipulating people, while Evan is inept. Evan can be selfish and manipulate to get what he wants, while Walter typically thinks of his family and other people above all else. Well, that's just great. We don't have an answer for that. I mean, that's a really deep ethical debate that can't really be answered here. Unless, let's take a closer look at Walt's intelligence when manipulating other people. We saw what he could do in a desperate situation, but what if he wasn't in danger? What if he was the danger? The instance I pointed out, where Walter poisons Brock, is one of, if not the only time, he manipulates properly and doesn't make himself look like an incompetent fool. Throughout the series, Walter makes it through sheer luck and other people's stupidity. The only reason his brother-in-law, Hank, didn't figure him out on day 1 was because Hank overlooked him. Also, in Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad's spin-off show, Saul directly states during his trial that Walter couldn't have done it without his help. This is all to say that Walter no longer has the first box checked. Ding ding ding, we have a winner, I guess. The better manipulator is Evan Hansen from the Tony Award-winning musical Dear Evan Hansen. Who would have guessed that a literal teenager would fit the definition of a manipulator more than an actual meth producer? Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, you should check out some more Cortonis videos. We'll all be uploading monthly, so you can expect more of me in the future. That's all, folks.